Hello and welcome back to Property Insights. My name is Mark Ashworth.
I'm Neil Harding.
So on today's video we're going to be talking about the Renters' Rights Bill Act again, this time focusing on the pets factor with rental properties. So there was some change in the law a while ago which gave some advice on you couldn't refuse the right to have a pet in your property. So we're just going to look at the detail around the new bill and how things have changed and what that looks like now.
Steve, thanks for joining us today. So you're a very experienced lettings agent and property investor, and you also have a few pets of your own.
I do.
How many cats do you own at the last count?
I've got 10 cats.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's fair to say you're a pet lover. This subject is close to your heart.
Yeah, it is. I think, I mean, if we look at what it's like today, and then we sort of look at how the new bill might change it. I mean, today it's probably a bit more cut and dried, I would say, in the sense that landlords can refuse animals in the property. And I mean, I have tenants that have, I think we've got one tenant that has a dog, and they put an argument forward to say we'd like to have a family pet. We've got 2 young children. We'll make sure that the pet is well behaved. And they've been in the property for 8 years now. So to my mind, as a landlord, with my landlord hat on, this is something that I wouldn't necessarily refuse. Now, what I asked them to do was to pay an enhanced deposit, which was organised through the letting agent. So if there is any damage, then that enhanced deposit would cover the cost. In retrospect, it probably wouldn't cover the whole cost because we don't know what the damage is. And I can recite a story of a mentee of mine who went to look at a property and the landlord was selling. And when he walked through the front door, the first 3 steps of the stairs going up was literally chewed away, and you could see into the cellar below. And the landlord, who was facing a refurbishment bill of about 30 grand, just didn't have the money to do that. So there are issues with having pets, but I think it comes down to what's reasonable and having that reasonable test. Now, the problem with a reasonable test is that you would have a different view of what's reasonable, I'd have a different view of what's reasonable, Mark would have a different view of what's reasonable. And I think what this new legislation will do is put some at least some tram lines or some guidelines around what is reasonable and what isn't reasonable. So just speculating for a moment, if you had a property that was on the 18th floor of a tower block, and someone wanted to put in 3 greyhounds who need a lot of running around and all that type of stuff, probably unreasonable. But if they wanted a goldfish, probably reasonable. But if that goldfish was in a 2,000 litre water tank, probably unreasonable in case there's a water leak and the water cascades through. So it's that type of guidance I'm hoping that the legislation will provide. And then it comes down to, as a property owner, what do you feel is reasonable, and how are you going to either politely decline or put an argument to the tribunal that's probably going to be set up to adjudicate on these cases coming through. So if I was coming to your property, Neil, and there's Monica and me and our 10 cats,
Yeah.
would you say that's reasonable?
To have 10 cats. If it was a house, I would think initially 10 cats seems excessive.
Yeah, and I would agree with you.
I would agree.
But if I had 2 cats,
I think that would not be excessive.
yeah. So then this is the decisions that we as property owners are going to have to go through when we get these requests. Because if I came to your property with my 2 cats and you said no, that's unreasonable, and I go to the tribunal or the adjudicator and they rule in my favour, then how are you going to feel as a property owner? And what I would probably suggest is that you'd be concerned about what's the condition of the property going to be like when I hand it back. So the question then becomes, what protections can you put in place as a property owner, or what protections could you ask your tenants to put in place in order to provide some form of guarantee, some form of safety net, so that you weren't faced with the bottom three steps of your stairs have been chewed away, and then you're going to have to pick up the costs of that. And I think that's where things like insurance products, which probably haven't even been designed yet, because we asked our tenant to provide insurance for the animal, which they duly did, and then the only insurance that's available was healthcare insurance. So we know that their animal is going to be well looked after if it got ill, but it does absolutely nothing for me as a property owner, because that insurance product doesn't relate to any damage that might happen to the property. So I think there's going to be a whole bunch of new insurance bolt-ons to landlord insurance that will cover against animal damage. But in that instance, it's the property owner that's paying the insurance. So is that a cost that we're going to have to swallow? Is that a cost that we might be able to pass on to the tenant or customer? Who knows? And that's, I think, that needs some clarification. So, and then the follow on that, from putting my letting agent hat on, where we look after HMOs, what happens if we've got a 6-bed property, 3 of the tenants want cats and 3 of the tenants want dogs? Is that reasonable or is that unreasonable? It's only 1 tenant and 1 animal, but when you put it into the whole mix, you've got 3 dogs, 3 cats. That's probably going to be an interesting situation to manage.
It's a really interesting point about HMOs. I don't have HMOs, you do, Mark. And yeah, it's a different... Yeah, oh my God, I was going to say it's a different animal. Can you believe that?
HMOs with animals, really, as far as I'm concerned, managing those properties is really not an option. There's too many variables, there's too much use of communal space, and considering that somebody in a HMO is renting just a bedroom on that AST, to then accommodate an animal, whether it's a cat or a dog, is probably not very fair on the dog, I'd say. I would take the view that it was unreasonable, and also you then don't know how that dog is going to affect other people in the house. So if the dog or animal or cat makes a noise, for example, is that going to affect other people in the house? Probably yes. I mean, I have actually been through the process of allowing a pet in a HMO, and it was an absolute disaster.
What happens when HMO tenant asks landlord for reasonable permission for 1 dog? Permission's granted. That dog then attacks another HMO tenant in the same house, who's then seriously injured. What litigation then follows against who?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just occurred to me, and I don't know what the answers are. I'm not a lawyer, but I've just...
But I think that comes into the reasonable test, in my humble opinion. I think it would be potentially deemed as unreasonable of having a cat or maybe even a dog. But we've had customers in our HMOs whereby they've had hamsters and gerbils and things like that. And you could make an argument that from a reasonableness test, that is more reasonable than having a dog or a cat or something. The other thing is reptiles. We've had customers that have had almost like aquariums with snakes in there and all sorts of things, which is really challenged when you're trying to sell a room, when your neighbour's got a 2-foot snake in there. But at the end of the day, as today, I can say no to that, but going forward, I might not be able to say no. And then what does that mean for the saleability in that room on an HMO's perspective, or that flat that's at the top of the high rise, or even that sort of 4 or 5 bedroom house that the property owner has spent maybe tens of thousands of pounds doing up, and could be very easily undone if the wrong animal goes into that property, or if the owner isn't responsible enough to train the animal not to destroy the property.
Steve, do you want to let people watching know about the cat charity and how they could donate to the good worthy cause?
Yes, thank you very much. We also do some charity work with a local cat rescue in Cambridgeshire, and our vet bills currently at the moment are in the thousands of pounds. There is a link below this video where if you're able to donate a couple of pounds or even a little bit more, then every penny that you receive goes into the cost of looking after our animals and, more importantly, getting vet treatments. Since the pandemic, more and more animals have been made homeless, and it's rescues like us that are picking up the pieces. So anything that you can donate, even if you're interested in becoming a fosterer, or you're interested in getting involved in the charity in any way, shape or form, please do let us know, and your time and money will be well invested.
Thanks, Steve. Great, well that wraps everything up, and we really hope that you found that insightful. I think we're all keen to see the final version of the bill and exactly what's involved. Please do comment, like and subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.